We had a very athletic family, and I was in a little league team. And one night after a game, I had a friend invite me to her house to spend the night. And I cleared it with my parents, and I was super excited. She was a couple years older than me, so it was neat that a big girl wanted to be my friend. I remember going to her house, and we had pizza for dinner. And then we went to a back room. I went down a hallway, and I turned to the left, and I went to this room where her dad and her brother were waiting for me. And what happened to me when I was a little girl, I have kept bottled up for 25 years. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't even tell myself. These are memories that I repressed. I kept them in a tight little file cabinet. Shortly after that, I started getting really angry outbursts. I couldn't control my emotions. I started to hurt myself. I started to hurt other people. So once again, I just kept things bottled inside of me. But when you're doing that, you know that you have to put a mask on. And I needed a cover, and I chose the mask of perfection. I had to be perfect at everything that I did. I had to be the best at everything. At every sport, I had to be the most athletic. When it came to in the show arena with horses, I had to be the prettiest out of all. I had to be the prettiest out of all of my friends. Every single aspect of my life, I sought perfection. And no matter how good I got, it was never satisfying to me. High school got really hard because of the mask that I was trying to wear. And I had a hard time. About my junior year, there was a girl, actually younger than me, not that that matters, but she didn't like me very much. And she started a rumor that I was a lesbian. It wasn't true, but it still made me feel bad nonetheless. And things started to build and escalate inside of me to where I decided that I didn't want to live in this world any longer. And I wanted to end things. So I thought of ways to do it, and I came up with the perfect plan. But I never had the perfect time. Praise God for that. As I tried to control myself, I was really angry. I had a short fuse. I had a hot temper. I was the smaller version of my dad. And we butted heads. Two Polish people living together that both think that they're number one is never good. And I started going to youth group at night to avoid going home because I hated him so much. Then I was 17 years old, and Youth Dynamics had a concert here in Republic. So I convinced my parents to let me go, and I invited a friend. And I remember we were at my grandma's house, and we're in the bathroom, and we're straightening her hair, and we're putting on our emo eyeliner, because we were cool like that. I had the side swipe bangs. And I was talking to her about this being a Christian-based concert, and she told me every reason she was not a believer. She had a rough life. She didn't have a dad. Her mom was in and out of meaningless relationships, and she didn't see why God would ever do that to a child. I had nothing to say, but she still went to the concert with me nonetheless. That night, in amongst songs, the lead singer, who I thought was pretty cute at the time, kept giving tidbits of the gospel. And then at the end, he decided to do an impromptu Bible study. And that was the night that I had heard the gospel for the first time in a way that actually struck me. And I remember ugly crying, snot slinging on my knees in the YD building that my future husband built, by the way. Yeah, I didn't know that at the time. And that was the night that I accepted Jesus into my heart, not because it was the right thing to do and that's what society wanted me to do, but because I actually wanted to have a relationship with the God that this lead singer had told me about. And being the best at things, if I was going to be a Christian girl, I was going to be the best darn Christian girl that ever lived. So I'd run down the hallways of my high school, and I'm like, Jesus loves you. Go to church. Woohoo, you're saved. Hugs, not drugs. I was on a Jesus high, and I was on fire for the Lord, and it was wonderful while it lasted. Then I went to college, and I still had my Jesus high, which was pretty cool. I got involved with a wonderful Christian group called Campus Crusades for Christ, and I got on their leadership team. And there were so many amazing people that were around me, and God did so many cool things in their lives, and I just wanted to be like them. And one time, they asked me to give my testimony in front of about 100 of my peers. And I said, absolutely, I will do this. But hearing the testimonies of my friends, I knew that mine wasn't Hollywood. It wasn't big. So I decided that I wasn't satisfied with my own story. And I added false statements into my testimony. I had the perfect opportunity to glorify God. And instead of taking the crown that should be cast at his feet, I thought it would look prettier on top of my head. And I made that night about myself. And this is the first time that I've given a full testimony since then. And I use the word testimony in air quotes because then it wasn't. It was something that I used for the glorification of myself. And tonight, out of all things, I just want to speak truth. And I just want to give all glory to God. And it's hard. I have felt so much shame over those false statements for so many years. But the thing is I do have a God that can turn shame into glory. And when I admit what I have done and that God loved me anyways, we take that power right away from Satan and we give it right back to God. And that is why I'm telling you what I did when I screwed up the last time I did this. But we have a God of second chances and third and fourths and fifths. And so this is my second chance up here now. In 2008, I was blessed with the opportunity to go to Kenya on a missions trip. And I thought, what a wonderful experience. I can take a break from college. And when I went, I did it for myself. I wanted the pictures with the orphans. I wanted to look like the cool, adventurous world traveler. But the funny thing is, when you get stripped away from your modern conveniences, God has a way of reaching you. If you don't have a screen in front of your face, you can hear people better. I know, it's a crazy thought, right? But God actually started to work with me, work in me, and work through me when I was in Kenya. And our team did something that we called Ask the Lord, where you don't really have a plan for the day, but you just go out on the streets and you just pray, God, use me. What can I do for you today? And I knew I was on the right track with the Lord when we were doing an ATL that day. And I heard something that I haven't heard so clearly. Do you guys remember at church that day Catherine had mentioned, you know what? Satan doesn't even need to be our full puppeteer. He just has to whisper doubt in our ear and we take care of the rest on our own. And that's exactly what Satan did that day. He knew I was on the brink of breaking into that relationship with God, and Satan got to me first. I could hear him more clear than I could hear God, is what I should say. And he told me, how dare you offer yourself as an offering to God when you can't even love yourself? You're giving a gift of mud to somebody that should be your king. And if you can't love yourself and offer your whole heart to him, then what are you even doing? And at that point, I decided I'm not worthy enough to work for God. I can't do his work. And when we got back from Kenya, it started with stories about what God did in people's lives. And then it turned to stories of my team was really cool and this is what we did. And then by the third rendition, guess what I did in Kenya? Look at all the things that I accomplished. Once again, taking that crown and putting it on myself. And that's something I've struggled with my whole life, is that pride and that glory. Shortly after I got back, I turned the legal drinking age. Now keep in mind, when you strive for perfection, you know what's right and what's wrong. And I didn't drink in high school, and I didn't drink in my early years in college, but all of a sudden I had the justification that it was legal and you can do it. And I lost all sort of self-control. I spent the next 5 years of my life blacked out drunk. I was in and out of meaningless sexual relationships, because I would watch the show Friends and Golden Girls, and this is mainstream media that is in everybody's homes today, and I was taught that these kind of relationships are normal and they're acceptable by society, therefore they have to be okay. They have to be good. There's no shame in that, and I continued down this journey. But in the end, I was never satisfied with who I was. I knew that I had the God card and I had enough biblical knowledge to me the glory. I thought I could use him as a pawn in my game. And it's so funny thinking so highly of myself at the time, because I know it's not the truth. And this is where, when I was talking about songs, and the song I wanted to play for you guys, but I felt parts were just not quite ready for big crowds. I do encourage you to go home and listen to it, chew on it, because some of the lyrics are a little hard. But I don't know if any of you ever heard the Derek Webb song, Wedding Dress. It's a hard one, and I'm going to read you guys a few of the lyrics here that it's quite literally the story of my life. So it goes, if you could love me as a wife, and for my wedding gift your life, should that be all I'll ever need, or is there more I'm looking for? Should I read between the lines to look for blessings in disguise, to make me handsome, rich, and wise? Is that really what you want? So could you love this bastard child, though I don't trust you to provide, with one hand in a pot of gold and with the other in your side? Because I'm so easily satisfied by the call of lovers, so less wild, that I would take a little cash over your very flesh and blood. And that's exactly what I was doing. I had one hand in his side, and I had another hand in a pot of gold, and I didn't know where I wanted to go. It's yours. But don't think that you're just going to stand by and let the world rush past you. You have to choose what side you will stand on. Ironically enough, when I was 25, God gave me a taste of my own medicine. Actually, no, he didn't give me a taste. Let me be more specific. He gave me a whole all-you-can-eat buffet of my own medicine. I don't know how many of you are country music fans, but if you know the song The Dance by Garth Brooks, in that song, he had a relationship with a woman, and I don't know if it ended in breakup or if it ended with her death, but it was a tragic, sad ending. But the lyrics go, and Garth is singing about it, and he says, yes, I had to live this bad ending, but I didn't want to miss the dance, and so I chose the dance. And that song was playing. A DJ played it one night at a bar, and there was a young guy there that caught my eye. And we danced. And he whipped up tears. And I'm like, oh, what have I gotten myself into? He's adorable and he's crying. And he told me about his late fiance that had died of a brain tumor. And my heart broke for him. And I felt his story. And I married him 4 short months later. And I immediately became pregnant with his child. And I was working 2 jobs, and I was tired, pregnant and working full time. I'd go to bed at 8 o'clock, and at that time he would sneak out, and he'd go to the bars, and he'd go to the strip clubs, and he'd blow entire paychecks. 7.5 months pregnant, I'm sober enough now to finally realize he's tripping over his stories, and there's a lot of inconsistencies and holes. Pretty soon, that fiance that died of a brain tumor, she died of breast cancer. Pretty soon, it wasn't a wrestling scholarship, it was a football scholarship where he had to drop out of college to take care of her. His dad was living in a different country than what he had told me. So I called him out on these stories, and he tried to turn the blame to me. And he blamed me for being pregnant with another man's child and calling him out, saying he was lying and me trying to get out of the marriage would justify it. That was not the case. It was, in fact, his child. But he had turned it all around for his glory. And I started to think about what that looks like on the other end. And I felt it. And I could not control my hormones at the time. Some women know what that's like, right, Carly? You're living it, girl. Anyways, I realized that I had married a con artist, and I had to get out for my own mental well-being, for my own safety. So at 7.5 months pregnant, I quit both jobs, packed up a 3-bedroom house, and I moved back to beautiful Republic, Washington, where I lived with my parents. Joy. At that time, I felt no connection to the baby that was growing inside of me. It was just an 18-year sentence to a boy that tricked me into marrying him. I didn't want to have this baby. I got an appointment with a doctor that was willing to take me 3rd trimester. like a delivery doctor, not an abortion doctor, praise God. But I remember being in the exam room, and I'm just thinking how much I don't want this child. I don't feel a connection to this child. And the medical assistant was holding my hand, and I just start crying, and I don't even have to tell her anything, and she just grips me tight and lets me put my head in her chest, and I just start bawling. And I don't say a word, and she strokes my hair, and she goes, "Sweetheart, you do not realize this right now, but trust me, this baby is such a blessing." And I'm thinking, how can you say that? You don't know my situation? You don't know anything about me? And I look up and I see her tag, her name tag. It was June Kirshner over in Tonasket. I don't know if you guys know her, but ironically enough, my mom went to church camp with her when they were little, and I went to church camp with June's kids. Actually dated one of her sons once. Actually dated both of her sons once, let's face it. But that moment, I decided that I was going to keep the baby. I didn't know why. I didn't really feel any different, but I knew it was right. Then I go into labor and got an interview at the bank here in town. Had to be a phone-in. I have the boy, and the next day I'm still in the hospital, and they offer me the job. I'm like, great, but you got to give me a little bit of recovery time. And they said, I can give you 3 weeks, and I said, I'll take it. So I'm 3 weeks postpartum, and I decide to go back to work full-time. I'm also a full-time student. I'm too busy to care. I'm too busy to show any affection towards this child. My parents took care of him full-time while I worked and was going to school. And I remember there would be nights where he would start crying, and I would ignore him. I was too tired. I didn't need to take care of it. And my mom would come into the room, and she would change him, and she would basically throw this baby at me, and she'd be like, you need to take care of him. This is your responsibility. You brought him into the world. You care for him. And I'm like, why would I want to do this? And I'm going through the motions. Why? Because it's the correct thing to do. So I do it. And on January 14th, 2015, Wyatt was 1 month and 1 week old, and he smiled for the first time. I have done nothing but reject this child for his entire life. And yet he chose to smile at me and to love me. And in that moment, that's the moment that I realized this didn't happen to me. God chose me for this. And things started turning. And that was the moment that I really became a mother. That was the first time I felt love for this child. And I'll never forget it. It was so amazing. I'm a mom now. I'm a single mom. By golly, if I'm going to be a single mom, I'm going to be the best darn single mom that ever lived. So I got a better job. I bought a house. I upgraded my car. I lost a bunch of weight, and I had a line of eligible bachelors at my disposal. But I wasn't satisfied. I continued drinking, and I started to get anxiety building inside of me. And then I had an old friend from high school come over to my house one time to pay me a visit. This girl had a rough life. She ended up being a stripper in college. She quit her job, and she found love and got married and had a family. She came over, and would you believe it or not, an ex-stripper invited me to church. And so I went down to Lakeview Bible, and I've been going consistently for 10 years since to church. Ironically enough, this little girl, I say little because she's like this big. It's a girl I invited to a concert when I was 17 years old. I think most of the crying parts are done. Okay, I feel better now. So I start going to church, and it's wonderful, and I feel fed a little bit, but there's still more. I'm not satisfied yet. And I knew that my son needed a father. And I had at the time, Ferry County's finest. There's like 6, let's face it. But I had my choice of 6. And it's so weird because God tells you little things. Like tonight, he's like, there's going to be somebody that you don't know there, and they're going to hear your story. And then there's going to be somebody there that needs to hear it, and you don't know who it is, and you may never know, and that's okay. But it's going to speak to one person. And God told me some things. He said, you're going to meet a man. He's a little bit older than you. And he works with his hands. And he's blonde. He's dirty dishwater blonde. Like, it got to that specific of details. And then I'm like, God, who is this? Like, I'm getting impatient. He goes, you've never even considered this person to be a future husband. And I'm like, oh, okay, but I know the person. God told me I knew them, but I had never considered it before. And it was just like getting really upset, right? And I'm at work one day, and I'm like, God's talking to me that day about it. I'm just getting really stressed out and just like writing. And TJ walks into the credit union. And it was like a beam of heavenly light shining down on him. Like I was slapped in the face with duh. That's who it is. And the one requirement I had of the man that my son would someday call dad was that he was a Christian. That was it. One simple thing. And TJ had an amazing Christian background, and he started going to church with me. And things escalated from there. And in the fall of 2018, Mickey Frazier married us up in the Little Blue Chapel in Curlew. And a year later, almost to the day, Pastor Mick prayed the first baby into the congregation of our new church. And that was little Ducky. And it was great. And on paper, everything looked perfect. But I still wasn't satisfied. And the drinking continued. And the anxiety got worse, and the storm kept building. So here's a fun fact for you guys. Did you know that if a woman is sexually abused as a child, and she chooses to repress those memories for her own protection, when her oldest gets to be of the age that she was at the time of the abuse, those memories are going to start to surface. And it's like an instinct trigger to get you to protect your child from the same fate. Wyatt started to get to be that age. And little tidbits of memories started coming back to me. And I have not looked at that file for 25 years. I kept it locked up in my brain. It's weird. It's like I always knew it was there and I refused to look at it. And that file surfaced. And there it sat, looking at me, waiting for me, knowing that that day was coming, that I had to open it. And I didn't want to, because I knew I'd have to relive the trauma that I went through when I was a little girl, being naked in that back room. So to avoid it, I drank. I drank a lot. I drank to keep from remembering, and somehow those memories came up. So I drank some more, and I drank even more. There's a theme here. And I wasn't satisfied. I hid it well from the world, but I did not hide it from my family. And before I knew it, I'd become just like my father, the man that I grew to hate so much in my life. The drunk that was verbally abusive, that would throw tantrums and always justify it, telling me it's normal behavior. And pretty soon I had to face reality, and I spiraled. But do you guys know what's stronger than Satan? The power of a praying husband and the muzzle that can put on Satan. There were so many nights, sorry, I'm calling you out, my husband would lay in bed while I was passed out drunk, and he would cry himself to sleep because he was praying so hard. And my husband is a lot of things, and there's things he isn't, but by golly, one thing he is a perseverant prayer. He will pray until something happens. He will pray without ceasing. And God can use people in the most amazing ways. And one day I realized what I had become, and I thought, you know what? Drinking wasn't the problem. Drinking was a symptom of the problem. So I prayed that God would take the alcoholism away, and nothing happened. And I prayed, and nothing happened. And I had every excuse in the book to keep drinking. I'm cooking Italian tonight. I can have a bottle of wine. It was a rough day and the kids won't stop screaming. Bottoms up. It's Tuesday, why not? Like, I would literally justify it by saying that. But the drinking could never satisfy me. And it's so weird. The more I prayed, the more I'd get this vision of a rock, and it's like the size of a truck. And there's a spindly little tree growing in between it, and the rock breaks in half. And I didn't realize what it was at the time. And then I realized exactly what it was. Half of the rock is the old me that's stuck in my sin, and half the rock is what is on the other side. And you know what's cool about a spindly little tree? Nobody ever expects it to break an old rock, right? Nobody expected a poor Jewish boy to save the world. And it clicked that Jesus was that tree, and I'm on one side, and I have to choose what side I'm going to be on, but whatever choice I make, that tree is going to be there blocking me from going back to the old choice. Jesus died so that we can be free from our sin. He did not die so that we are free to sin. And I think that is something that we get so wrong, and we can justify our sin time and time again. And that doesn't make it okay. It makes us human. And that happens. But we have a God that is bigger than any justification we can give ourselves. And that is awesome. And I changed the way I prayed. It used to be, God, make me sober. God, give me the image of being the perfect mom. I want to be on the cover of Home and Gardens magazine. But then it changed, and I said, God, so that I can truly live for you, I pray that you can break the chains of alcoholic gluttony in my life. And the day that I prayed that prayer, I received the fruit of self-control. And I have not been drunk a day since. That was the day that I tasted the living water that Jesus spoke about in John 4:13 through 14. When Jesus answered, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. And after tasting that water, I was finally satisfied. So, sometimes you have to let go of the old you to let the new you come in. So I'm going to teach you guys something. And if you know me, this is just like the perfect object lesson. But if you don't know me, welcome to Ferry County, I'm Sally. Okay, who knows how to trap a baboon? Oh yeah, we're going there. Huh?
You put something inside there.
That's exactly. So when I was in Kenya, Shosho, which is Kiswahili for grandma, she was like our little team mom. She was awesome. She took us all and taught us how to trap baboons, and it's really cool. So you take like an old hollowed out log, and you chop a little hole in it just big enough for a hand to fit through. And then you take a shiny object. We used Coke bottle caps, but I'm using a pen cap for this. And you drop it in the hole, and the baboons are watching all this go down, right? And they go in. Oh, you walk away, and you can watch from a distance, and they're so curious about what you put in there, and they reach their hand in, and then they grab it. And you can walk right up to that baboon, hammer in your hand ready to bash in their skull. And they are so curious as to what that is that they are not willing to let go of it. Therefore, when they make the fist, their hand is trapped. And you can go right up to them and kill them because they can't let go of that object. And I remember being there, and I'm thinking, these monkeys are stupid. Why don't they just let go and run away? And I asked Shosho, and she's like, really, are the monkeys stupid? And it made me think that we all have a shiny object to Jesus. Take it away, I don't want it. That part's easy. That part is super easy to admit that you don't want that in your life anymore. But the hard part, especially for somebody who has taken so much control over her life to make it as perfect as possible, the hardest action for me was the release. But if you do that, you can break away from what's going to kill you. And here's the funny thing is when you finally receive that living water from the one true God, you can't grab the cup if you have something else in your hand. In order to grab the cup, you have to let go of the rest. And then you can finally taste the water. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm still on my recovery journey with the repercussions of what happened to me when I was a little girl, and it's hard. And some days are really hard. And there's certain aspects of my marriage, of my life, that we still struggle with. But I know that I have a husband that prays without ceasing. And I know that I have a stronghold whenever a storm brews. And the one thing that Satan does not think about whenever he puts a storm in your life to pull you away from God, as the famous Dolly Parton once said, storms make trees take deeper roots. And that's something whenever I'm struggling, I recognize that it is a storm and it is a lie from the pit of hell. And all it's going to do is make my roots grow a little bit stronger in my walk with God. God's never willing to give you something that he's not willing to help you through. Romans 5:19 says, "As by one man's disobedience many were made sinners, so by the obedience of one shall many be made righteous." So to sum this all up in a nutshell, and I don't know, I probably spoke way too fast. I don't know what time it is, but it's okay. It's God's time. Because of a sexual predator, I was dragged into the life of sin, struggle, guilt, and shame. Because of a concert, I heard the gospel and asked Jesus into my life. Because of the kind words of a stranger, I chose to become a mother. Because a baby smiled, I felt joy. Praying husband, I kept my stronghold through the storm. And because I have a God that loves me, even when I don't deserve it, my debt is paid in full, and I am truly free, satisfaction guaranteed.